I worked 3 jobs a day to put Xielin through school. After graduation, he was recognized by a wealthy family and became the crown prince of the Beijing elite circle. Everyone said my days of hardship were finally over, and I was about to ascend to the status of a wealthy socialite's wife. Only I, behind all the glitter, asked him, "Should we break up?" He paused, then gave an awkward smile. "Don't be ridiculous." I saw his hesitation and gave a faint smile. "It's fine, don't feel pressured. I'll leave on my own." That night, I packed my bags and left the rental apartment that held 3 years of memories between him and me. "Are we breaking up?" Xielin was clearly taken aback, as if I had hit a nerve. Noticing my gaze, he seemed a bit flustered. He ruffled my hair and forced an awkward smile, saying, "What nonsense are you talking about? Just moments ago, I overheard his conversation with a high school classmate. Man, your life is a total comeback story. Even the goddess when is chasing after you now. Back in high school, she wouldn't even give you the time of day. Must feel pretty damn good now." I heard your family is still planning that alliance with the Wens, so, what's the deal with your little delivery girl girlfriend? Back then, I was still hoping he'd say something like a romance novel hero, vowing he'd marry no one but me. Instead, he just lowered his head and said flatly, "I've wanted to break up for a while. We just don't have anything to talk about. Let it run its course. It's not like the Xie family would ever let me marry a food delivery girl anyway." So, all these years, I was the one clinging to him desperately. In his eyes, I'm just a food delivery person, not good enough for him. Yet, not long ago, he was holding me, promising to be with me for all eternity. I thought I knew him well enough. For the past 2 years, I worked around the clock to earn his living expenses. Without even having time to eat instant noodles, my friends felt sorry for me, saying it wasn't worth it and worrying I'd end up with nothing. I swore to her that Xielin wasn't that kind of person. Reality slapped me hard in the face. It turns out all I did was a one-sided wishful thinking, and to him, it only became a burden. But if he didn't like me, he could have just said so. Why did he have to look at me with those affectionate eyes, time and again, swearing I was the only one for him? It made me sink deeper, deceiving myself into believing he liked me too. I almost forgot that I was never the one he liked in the first place. Back in high school, his pursuit of Wenji was the talk of the town, and I was a first-hand witness to it all. Xielin was dirt poor back then, wearing the same faded school uniform through all 4 seasons, yet he was rich enough to give Wenji limited edition music boxes and concert tickets that were impossible to get. But none of this meant a thing to Wenji. Music boxes weren't a gift unique to him, and tickets he couldn't get would be eagerly shoved into her hands by someone else the very next second. Wenji never thought much of him from the start, treating him as nothing more than a fool she could order around at will. Time and again, she ground Xielin's dignity into the dirt, yet he still willingly followed in her footsteps. I don't even know when I started liking Xielin. Perhaps it was in those moments, watching the light in his eyes be shattered time and again, only for him to force the pieces back together. The shattered youth gazed with earnest devotion at the light he yearned to protect, forgetting he was already riddled with wounds. The light and shadow saw through his scars, longing to embrace him and make him whole. I couldn't bear to see the youth hurt again, so I urged Wenji to turn and look at that persistent shadow that refused to leave. Her face was a mask of disdain as she laughed at my foolish sentimentality. Later, when she was secretly photographed, Xielin stood up for her and beat the perpetrators so severely they were seriously injured. He was convicted and given a criminal record. When she refused to clear his name, and her whole family flew out of the country. He had been accepted into a top-tier university, but the offer was rescinded because of his criminal record. He refused to see anyone. Ignoring the glass he hurled at me, I walked up to his side. Only when the warm blood trickled down my shin did he stop smashing things and hand me a band-aid. "Just go, don't waste your time on me. I'm a wreck now. Just let me be, okay, let me fade away." Back then, he had completely given up on himself. I was terrified he might do something drastic, so I made sure to bring him 3 meals a day, rain or shine, and watched him finish every bite. I scoured the internet for all sorts of motivational quotes and self-help advice, trying to pull him out of that dark place. It all came to a head when his drunk foster father called to tell me he had slit his wrists, lost too much blood, and was rushed to the hospital. That day, His foster father had hurled some truly vile words at him. If you're going to kill yourself, do it outside, don't bring that bad luck into this house. I only adopted you back then because you were smart and I thought you'd take care of me in my old age. Who knew I'd be stuck with a goddamn burden? I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed Xielin by the collar and started yelling, Xielin, pull yourself together, go take a look outside, does anyone have it easy? You act like the sky is falling over the smallest damn thing. When trouble comes knocking, all you think about is running away instead of how to face it. So what if your admission offer got revoked? At worst, you just start over, it's not the end of the world, can't even handle a little setback like this. No wonder when she looks down on you. After the incident, I was extremely careful with every word I said to him, terrified of stepping on a landmine. My scolding left him utterly bewildered, staring back at me with red-rimmed eyes. In a troubled home, his outstanding academic performance was the only thing that gave him any real confidence. I wiped the tears from the corner of his eye. You're so smart, this can't be all there is for you, get through this, and everything will be okay. I don't know where I found the nerve back then, but I pulled him along and we moved into a rented apartment together. My grades were average at best. I'd be lucky to get into a vocational college. My family wanted me to start working early to help out at home. They gave me 5,000 yuan, expecting me to go out into the world, make something of myself, and repay them. Seeing how hard up I was, Xielin suggested dropping out of school. I immediately shut down that idea, telling him his only job was to focus on his studies, and I would handle everything else. I washed dishes at a restaurant during the day, delivered takeout at night, and handed out flyers on the street whenever I had a spare moment. That's how I just barely managed to cover my living expenses. That time, to earn extra money for Xielin's study materials, I took on dozens of food delivery orders in one night. I ended up collapsing by the bridge from sheer exhaustion. Xielin stared at my heavily bandaged leg, his eyes welling up. I forced a smile to reassure him, saying it didn't hurt. He pulled me tightly into his arms and called me a fool. He said I was his whole world and vowed to give me a better life from then on. As expected, he ended up getting into a top-tier university. After the Xie family learned about all I had done for him over the years, they handed me a bank card. I was at a loss for words. 3 years of my life weren't for a bank card. Xielin used to promise me a better life, but I never dreamed of living in luxury. To me, a good life simply meant being with him, steady and secure. Trying to buy out our 3 years with a bank card felt like an insult, and frankly, a bit ridiculous. All my friends said my hardships were over and I was about to become a wealthy man's wife, but deep down, I knew a family like that would never accept someone like me. It should be a match of equals, with similar backgrounds and circumstances, just like Wenji. Xielin's initial affection was for Wenji from the very start. What he felt for me was probably more out of gratitude. He likely felt we couldn't connect on the same level ever since we started university. Back then, I couldn't grasp the academic topics he talked about, and he had no interest in the stories from my daily food delivery job. I began to notice he was speaking less and less. I'm someone who struggles deeply with insecurity. In my eyes, he was so exceptional. Surrounded by all those beautiful women at university, I was terrified he'd change his heart. I would constantly, over and over, try to prove whether he loved me, always falling back on that line. Don't you forget who paid for your university. During our worst fight, I forced him to take me to buy a DR diamond ring and make a promise to marry me as soon as he graduated. He was stunned for a long moment before taking the ring out of the drawer. He said he had bought it long ago. Deep down, I knew the ring didn't fit my finger, but I chose to keep wearing it, deceiving myself all the while. I looked at him intently, and driven by a stubborn hope, I couldn't help but ask one more time. Seriously, do you want to break up? Seeing the earnest look on my face, his smile faded, and he fell silent. I laugh at my own foolishness. What on earth am I chasing? 2. I knew the answer all along, yet I kept deluding myself, hoping I might be wrong. But on my ring finger is the ring he placed there himself. The kind they say you can only buy once in a lifetime. After loving him for all these years, how could I not have held on to foolish hopes? I turned away, pretending nothing was wrong, and went to water the champagne roses on the balcony. The champagne roses on the balcony were something we planted together. We saw their meaning at the florist and decided to buy them on the spot. Back then, he asked me when I'd developed a hobby for gardening. I said they were beautiful. But the real reason was their meaning. My heart is yours alone. He came up behind me and whispered, Wanwan, you will always be the most important person to me. Tears welled up in my eyes. My eyes are so vast they can hold the whole world, yet so small they can't even contain a few tears. I turned my back to him, not wanting him to see my distress. I quickly wiped away my tears and blurted out, what about Wenji? He fell silent. I looked out the window, letting the wind dry the tears in my eyes. I set the vase down, turned to face him, and struggled to pull the ring off. The ring was a size too small. Forcing it on had been painful, leaving a tight, aching mark. Now, with it removed, my finger felt relief, and a weight was lifted from my shoulders. I shoved the ring into his hand. Here, take it back. I looked at the pale band left on my finger. Sorry, I must have stretched it. He opened his mouth to speak, but I didn't want to hear it. The door suddenly swung open. A few of Shirley's university friends walked in and saw us standing together. No wonder there was no answer after all that knocking. One of them said, the young lovebirds were busy flirting. Can't help it, ruining the moment is just my style. All jokes aside, we're actually here with good news. Your paper won an award. Shirley's friend was refined, gentle, and impeccably polite. They all knew of my existence, admired my capabilities, and envied Shirley for his good fortune. For 3 years, they often came to our rented apartment. Knowing we were struggling, they always brought a whole bunch of things with them each time. Shirley went over and sat down. Leafing through his award-winning thesis, one of them clapped him on the shoulder and said, You've really made it, kid. Your wife's painstaking efforts to nurture you haven't gone to waste. He glanced at me, looking somewhat awkward, and replied stiffly, Yeah, all thanks to Wanwan. His friend threw an arm around his shoulders. You have to bring your wife to the conference. It's the perfect chance to visit the Forbidden City. He looked up at me, as if waiting for my response. Another friend chimed in, egging him on. Yeah, your wife's heroic story would totally go viral online. I knew Xielin didn't really want me there. I won't go. A place for intellectuals like you is no place for an illiterate like me. His friend straightened up, brimming with enthusiasm. Sis, what are you talking about? We genuinely admire you. I've never met a woman who'd willingly work 3 jobs just to put a man through school, let alone one as beautiful as you. Xielin chimed in. Come with us, it's the perfect chance since you hardly ever get out. Just think of it as a trip with a few good friends. The moment those words were spoken, everyone's gaze instantly snapped toward him. His friend's temper wasn't exactly mild. Good friend, what the hell are you talking about, kid? I heard your own father arranged a marriage alliance for you, and it's with that white moonlight from high school, the one who got you sent to prison. Seeing him fall silent, everyone grew agitated, taking turns to criticize and denounce him. What, you're not actually considering going through with this arranged marriage? Are you out of your mind? You're throwing away such a wonderful wife for that other woman. If you dare pull that kind of ungrateful stunt, you won't have to worry about your wife. I'll be the first one to take you down. Anyone who could do something like that is a complete scumbag. Finally, the friend sitting next to him put an arm around his shoulders and assured me, Don't you worry, we'll keep him in line for you. That guy wouldn't dare do something like that even if he had 100 times the nerve. I smiled, and the topic was quickly brushed aside by other matters. But Xielin never offered a single word in his own defense. My friend had advised me more than once, Wanwan, are you really going to do this? True feelings are fleeting. There are so many cases like this online. Can you be sure that when he's successful and famous, he'll still be devoted to you? The higher he climbs, the wider the gap between you becomes. Are you certain he'll still sincerely want to marry you then? It was always a high-stakes gamble, and I simply lost my bet. Back then, I was hesitant, afraid to voice the answer. Now, the answer has only become a firm no. 3. Xielin won't marry me. They soon huddled together again, discussing academic topics in jargon I couldn't understand. Perhaps Xielin and I were never from the same world to begin with. I stood up and went back to the bedroom. This bedroom holds so many memories of Xielin and me. I remember in the beginning, all we could afford was a leaky basement. On a sub-zero day, rainwater seeped through a crack, slowly soaking Xielin's back. I threatened to break up with him if he didn't switch places with me. Shivering from the cold rain, he held me tight and vowed he would marry no one but me. I stared at the contact list for a long moment before finally dialing the Xie family's number. My words came out awkwardly. "Auntie, about that bank card of yours." His mother's voice sounded rather gentle. "I've thought it over. The 8-figure sum. You can have it. Thank you for taking care of my Xie Lin all these years. If only." No sooner had the words left her mouth than she swiftly changed the subject. "You're a clever girl. Take this money and start a small business. You'll have no problem supporting yourself." She wanted to say, "If I weren't a delivery driver, if my family circumstances were just a little better, I would have made Xie Lin marry me. But the world isn't full of so many what ifs." I murmured a soft amham. I stood in the bedroom for a long time, unable to decide what to take with me. The closet was packed with clothes, but only 2 or 3 faded shirts were mine. I took them down and threw them in the trash, then looked up and saw the photo of him and me on the nightstand. This was taken on the Hong Kong observation wheel. For just over $20, you get 3 full rotations. Back then, I was in the capsule, dragging him around and snapping photos like crazy. I picked it up and looked at it one more time before finally tossing it in the trash. In the end, I walked out the door with just that card. As I was leaving, Xie Lin's friend asked me, "Sis, it's so late. Where are you off to?" I made up an excuse on the spot. "A friend's having a birthday. I'm going to swing by." They chimed in, "Take us with you. The more the merrier." I smiled and politely declined. "No, she's not comfortable with a big crowd." Xie Lin knew I was brushing them off, sensing something. He looked up and fixed me with a heavy stare. "I don't have many friends. Fu Minute is the only one I've stayed close with all this time." Her birthday had just passed. I waved my hand and instinctively looked at Xie Lin. "I'm heading off now. Once I leave, I won't be coming back." At 11 p.m., I left that place holding the card in my hand, a place that held 3 years of my memories. In the end, I took the card. Just as my friend said, I shouldn't walk away empty-handed. I worked tirelessly to lift Xie Lin to the top, and in the end, he chose to abandon me. This card is nothing but the cheapest form of compensation. This is what I deserved all along. Following Mrs. Xie's advice, I opened a bubble tea franchise in a new mall development. The prime location and brand recognition made the shop a huge success. I was so busy running around every day that I hardly had a moment to think about Xie Lin. Whenever I saw a delivery rider drenched in sweat, I'd instinctively make an extra cup. It reminded me of my own past. A thought would flash through my mind. Could any of them be working themselves to the bone, just like I did, to put their boyfriend or girlfriend through school? If fate gave me a second chance, would I make the same choices all over again? But the world was never full of so many what ifs. After a long, exhausting day, I lay in my rented room, staring blankly at the stark white ceiling. I wasn't even sure what I was thinking about as a tear escaped from the corner of my eye and slipped into the quilt. I wasn't thinking about Xie Lin. Instead, I raised my hand and stared at the red marks left on my fingers, wondering when they would fade. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, groggy and half-conscious, my phone rang. The person on the other end stayed silent. I glanced at the screen, saw the contact name was Xie Lin, and asked, "What's wrong?" After a long pause, he finally spoke, asking, "Did you touch the things in the box?" Xie Lin had a treasured box. Once, I accidentally opened it and discovered it was filled with everything related to Wenji, photos of Wenji, and every conversation with her, painstakingly transcribed by hand. Seeing all that, I was furious at the time, and for the first time, he lost his temper with me. They say online that the power of a white moonlight is unmatched, a man's untouchable Achilles heel. In the end, I chose to compromise. "You can keep the box, but you must never open it again," I said calmly. "Xie Lin, we've broken up, the promises between us are void. You can open that box whenever you want. I know those things are precious to you. I won't touch them." He seemed somewhat remorseful and asked tentatively, "Did you throw away the photo on the nightstand?" I said frankly, "Well, it was going to be thrown out sooner or later anyway." A long silence fell over the call. Not knowing what else to say, I simply hung up. All drowsiness vanished. I walked out to the balcony, gazed at the pitch-black sky, and began to ponder the meaning of life. I started to wonder deeply, why doesn't affection equate to happiness? I poured my heart out for Xie Lin, but why don't I feel happy? After a long internal struggle, I finally realized, to love others, you must first love yourself. Looking back, it's like I was trapped in a cycle of people-pleasing. As a child, to win my parents' favor, I kept forcing myself to do things I didn't want to do, yet the love I received wasn't a fraction of what my brother got. Later, I tried to win Wenji's favor, doing everything she was unwilling to do myself, bending over backwards for her. In the end, she just saw me as an obedient servant. Then later, I tried to curry favor with Xie Lin. I've spent so much effort trying to please all these people, yet it never once occurred to me to be kind to myself. That night, perhaps carried away by impulse, I used the remaining money on that card to buy myself an apartment. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Consumed by house renovations and managing the bubble tea shop, I had no time to dwell on whether anyone loved me. I was living for myself. I felt a sense of liberation like never before, even regretting not having this epiphany sooner and wasting my time on people who weren't worth it. I ran into Xie Lin again at the entrance to our residential complex. A few of his friends were shoving him. Xie Lin, if you don't go win Zhu back, we're done as brothers. Have you lost your mind? Letting a woman this good get away? That high school classmate chimed in. I agree. Zhu is better than Wenji. It had been over a year since I last saw Xie Lin, and he was still strikingly handsome. His features were sharp and deep-set, with thick, dark lashes that softened his look just right. Teased by his friends, he brushed it off casually. We'll see if I even run into her. As luck would have it, I was right behind them. Hearing that, my first instinct was to turn and duck into the nearby cafe, 5. But the next second, I nearly bumped into a bubble tea shop employee who exclaimed, Wanwan. She looked really worried, so I asked her, what's wrong? She looked at me, hesitated to speak, and then glanced behind her, following her gaze. I turned around and saw Xie Lin being playfully shoved and teased by his friends. It's right in front of you. What are you waiting for? Meeting someone like Zhu Wang in this lifetime, you've hit the jackpot. If you miss this, you'll be kicking yourself later. This scene takes me back. In his sophomore year, Xie Lin fell for a girl. She was pretty, always smiling, and looked a lot like Wenji. He was acting really strange during that time, so I pressed him until he came clean. He said he couldn't help himself. His attraction to her was purely physical. Holding back tears, I said okay and chose to walk away. I was so foolish back then, afraid he'd go hungry saving up to buy that girl a gift. I transferred all my money into his account. Not long after, he came over, just like today, egged on by a few friends. Seeing how dejected he looked, I forgave him before he could even say a word. Looking back, I was hopelessly naive. It's just like the old saying goes. It takes two to tango. I turned back to the shop assistant and said, don't mind them, what's up? Go on. She finally spoke up hesitantly. Well, Sister Wanwan, I have some family matters to deal with these next few days. Would it be possible to take some time off? I breathed a sigh of relief. Do I really seem that unreasonable? Take a few extra days, sort out your family affairs properly before you come back. Thanks, Wanwan. I watched the shop assistant leave. It wasn't until Xie Lin's voice sounded that I realized he was standing behind me. Zhu Wang. I turned to look at him. He was staring at me, utterly speechless, unable to get the words out. His friends egged him on from the back. Xie Lin, what's your attitude? Apologize to your girl and make it up to her. Countless times before, I longed to hear an apology from him, but he never did. He would never lower his head to me on his own. Now, I don't want to hear it, and I don't want it anymore. He glanced over his shoulder and, with a dismissive air, managed to blurt out, when are you moving back? Deep down, he always thought I was just throwing a tantrum and would come back on my own once I cooled off. He never believed he was in the wrong, so he refused to humble himself and apologize to me. But I've come to realize that the Xie family's hefty compensation for those 3 years has left me quite comfortably off. Even if I hadn't supported Xie Lin through school those 3 years. With my background and qualifications, I still wouldn't have ended up where I am today. So, I didn't lose out. I looked at him and said, I'm not going back. He stared at me intently, finally gave a low amham, and turned to leave. Seeing him return, all his friends gathered around to tease him. So, did your wife forgive you? Did you give the ring back to your wife? I say you two should just get married already. Watching you go through this back and forth every day is exhausting. We're not back together, and I'm not going to marry her. Xie-Lin's voice was low and thick with impatience. All his friends fell silent as he raised his voice. I never liked her in the first place, so why would I marry her? Just because I'm grateful, I'm supposed to marry someone I don't love and spend my whole life with them. I only see her as a friend. Hearing those words from him, a sudden surge of anger welled up inside me. 3 years, and now you tell me you don't have feelings for me. You're telling me you don't like me now. Where was this energy before? What do you take me for? Someone call Floozy. I strode forward and slapped Xie-Lin across the face with a sharp asterisk crack asterisk. Consider this slap and the bank card from your mother as us being even. 6. For those 3 years. Just consider me a fool who was blind to your true, rotten character. You think I'd even marry you? In your dreams. Just so you know, I'm the one dumping you. Everyone was staring at me in shock. I rubbed my palm, regretting not slapping him sooner. During those years I delivered takeout to put Xie-Lin through school. I kept seeing stories online about people being abandoned in the end. I kept searching obsessively, until I finally came across one video of a couple who actually made it, and then I'd be happy for a long time, thinking that exceptions must exist after all. Sadly, Xie-Lin and I didn't become that exception. He got together with Wenji, 3 posts a day on his social feed. All of them couple photos. It was impossible for me not to know. Back when I asked him to post about us, he said a relationship is something you just know about. There's no need to broadcast it to the world. When you run into someone you like, how could you possibly keep it to yourself? We ran into each other again at the high school reunion. I wasn't going to go, but Fu Minute practically dragged me there. She said she wanted to prove to Xie-Lin that I was doing perfectly fine without him. Xie-Lin and Wenji walked in hand, fingers tightly interlaced. Fu Minute gripped my hand tighter and whispered, "What a shameless pair." I patted her hand to soothe her. By now, I had long since made my peace with it and could look at Xie-Lin and Wenji openly and without hesitation. Wenji was as stunning as ever, standing out as the center of attention the moment she entered the room. Xie-Lin saw me too and deliberately chose a seat in the corner farthest from me. He pulled out a wet wipe and meticulously cleaned Wenji's utensils from top to bottom. Then, he called a waiter for a hot towel and helped Wenji wipe her hands. Just like back in high school, he took care of her every need. The entire dinner became their stage for a public display of affection. Before I could even say how gross it was, Fu Minute beat me to it. She huffed and puffed, saying she was going to set me up with a 6 feet 1 inch male model. I asked, "Where is he? Why haven't you sent me his WeChat yet?" That's how the conversation really got going, and my attention drifted away from Xie-Lin and Wenji. Later on, Fu Minute got drunk. As I was helping her out the door, Wenji called out to me, "After all these years, you haven't changed a bit." I paused in my steps, and she continued, "Always thinking of others, never looking out for yourself." I didn't say a word, just kept carrying Fu Minute forward. She took a step forward. To be honest, if Xie-Lin were still as poor as he used to be, I wouldn't like him. He's a good man. But I would never be interested in someone I consider beneath me. That's the difference between you and me. I wouldn't let myself fall into destitution just because I fancied someone. I nodded. She had been perfectly clear-headed the entire time. Because she loves herself enough, she always lives a glamorous life. I said self-deprecatingly. I think the old me was pretty foolish too. I suddenly asked out of curiosity, if Xie-Lin weren't a son of the Xie family, would you still be with him? She answered with decisive firmness, "No." Bang! Suddenly, shards of glass sprayed at her feet. Wenji's 2 sentences had sent Xie-Lin into a rage. He looked at Wenji. The furrow in his brow gradually smoothing out, his tone softening. "The Xie family has already publicly announced that I'm their long-lost young master. What's the point of entertaining such an impossible hypothetical?" He couldn't allow that scenario to happen. He was afraid. Terrified that Wenji would leave him again. The next day, after Fu Minute sobered up, she sent me a WeChat message. "That despicable couple is flaunting their relationship right in your face. You should hurry up and get one too." I only said those things last night because I got caught up in the moment. Now that I've cleared my head, I realize I'm not ready to start a relationship yet. These days, I'm more focused on my career. The bubble tea shop has been booming for the past few months, so I'm planning to expand the storefront. I turned her down gently. Let's just leave it at that. She thought I was still hung up on Xie Lin and sent me several long voice messages just to rant about him. I found it incredibly satisfying to listen to, so I replied with 3 rows of thumbs-up emojis. As the bubble tea shops expanded and the team grew, I gradually stepped back from the front lines. I used my free time to learn things I never had the chance to before, like piano and painting. During that time, quite a few people expressed interest, but the moment I suggested taking things slow, they all vanished as if I had the plague. Then, in less than 2 weeks, I'd see them posting about their new girlfriends on social media. My friends tease me for being a professional matchmaker. I laugh along with them. Honestly, I'm in no rush. I used to pour all my heart into Xie Lin, but now I want to focus on myself first. I need to clear out my heart completely before I let someone new move in. When it comes to love, I still hope to meet someone genuine. I long for a connection where true hearts meet. Xie Lin broke up with Wenji. He was the one who ended it. For the past half a year, I've been traveling everywhere, hiking, visiting exhibitions, exploring ancient towns and museums, constantly enriching myself. His college friends still treat me as a friend, keeping up with my social media and occasionally checking in on me. And then, news about Xie Lin reached my ears again. After the breakup with Wenji, he went on a rebound dating spree. Eventually, he came to his senses and started to slow down. His friends always call me sister-in-law, whether intentionally or not, dropping hints that Xie Lin is single and urging me to come back for a get-together. Fermine is getting married next month and has informed me that I must return to be her bridesmaid. I just didn't expect that everyone would be waiting for me the moment I got off the plane. Xie Lin's friend called me sister-in-law the moment he saw me, then quickly corrected himself to Sis Wanwan when he realized it was inappropriate. Wow, Wanwan, you look like a whole new person after your trip. We were exchanging pleasantries when someone inadvertently brought up Xie Lin again. I pretended not to hear and brushed it off. The next second, his voice reached my ears. You've lost weight. I felt this kind of small talk didn't suit our current relationship, but at a loss for what else to say, I could only offer a perfunctory reply. You too. He hesitated for a long moment before finally speaking. I'm not. He was cut off mid-sentence by the ring of my phone. I gave them an apologetic smile. As soon as I answered, a man's warm, steady voice came through. Wanwan, where are you? Send me your location. Stay put, and I'll come find you. After hanging up, they all insisted that our reunion after so long called for a feast on me. As punishment for going on a trip without them, I said with a smile, sure, you pick the place. But we might have to add one more person. They looked around, surprised. Add who? A man in a black windbreaker stood out in the crowd, carefully cradling something bulky and unknown inside his jacket. He unzipped it and pressed a bag of still warm roasted chestnuts into my hands. Here, they're already shelled for you. Just before boarding, I casually mentioned that I was craving some sugar-roasted chestnuts. He took my luggage and pinched my cheek. You have such a cruel heart. Leaving me all alone here for so long. Before I could even introduce him, he noticed my stunned group of friends. Putting his arm around my shoulder, he introduced himself. Hello everyone, I'm Wanwan's boyfriend, Jiyu Yenjin. Sometimes, fate works in strange ways. It arrives suddenly, at the most unexpected times and places. I was heading home from work as usual when the sound of a piano caught my ear. I followed the music and found the studio. Dressed in black, he sat perfectly upright, his slender fingers moving across the keys, each touch imbued with profound feeling. I've loved the sound of the piano since I was a child, but my family couldn't afford lessons. Once I was financially able, I often studied the instrument, but it always felt like something was missing. Jiyu Yenjin's playing that day was truly unique and special. No matter how many times he played afterward, he could never recapture that same feeling. Perhaps it was fate that brought us together. We talked for hours that day, which was unusual for me as I'm not normally one for long conversations. Later on, he confessed his feelings to me, and I told him to take it slow. He didn't rush me. Instead, he patiently matched my pace, moving forward step by step. Fuming, Fu Minute accused, you kept them a secret. Fine, but how could you not even tell me? I scratched my head. Sorry about that. I got so busy it just slipped my mind. 7. I don't like to make a big deal of things before they're settled. We just made it official last week, and it happened to coincide with the bubble tea shop's expansion, so I flew to Beijing to scout locations. It would have been even more complicated to handle things with both of us there, so I had Jiyu Yenjin come back early. Jiyu Yenjin and Fu Minute both turned their gazes toward me and spoke in unison. What, you forgot about me? As punishment, you're buying me 2 chicken drumsticks, and make them big ones. I'll treat you instead, double that, as a welcome gift. If you're paying, then it's not just a chicken leg anymore. Alright, have it your way. Jiyu Yenjin, being outgoing by nature, quickly hit it off with them. We were laughing and joking all the way to the restaurant before we realized someone was missing. Xielin wasn't there, his friend called him, and he answered in a weak voice. My stomach suddenly started cramping badly. I had to go to the hospital. Their faces instantly fell. That's so sudden. Could it be another polyp? His voice was hoarse and weak. No, it's nothing. Just ate something bad. Don't worry about it. Xielin has a weak stomach. He used to frequently develop polyps and had to see a doctor every other week. Even though he said he was fine, as his friends, they were still worried. They looked at me, conflicted, so I offered them a way out. You should go check on Xielin. Stomach pain is no small matter. We can have this meal anytime. Besides, I'm tired from the flight and would like to go back and rest. After they left, Jiyu Yenjin squeezed my hand and said, "How are you supposed to sleep on an empty stomach?" How did he know my stomach had been rumbling for a while? I dodged his question and picked up my chopsticks. Let's just eat here before we go. We're already here. After all, he sat upright, hands on the table, and turned to look at me with a smile. I had no idea what he was smiling about. On the way back, I hiccuped and complained, "It's all your fault for ordering so much and not eating any of it. The staff probably think I was a pig in a past life." He took my wrist, his tone laced with a hint of sarcasm. "You've lost weight." Before I could even process what he meant, he pinched a bit of flesh on my cheek. "Funny, I think you've actually put on a few pounds, Jiyu Yenjin." We were roughhousing our way back when a figure suddenly blocked our path. Instinctively, Jiyu Yenjin tightened his grip on my hand. I never expected to see the person who should be in the hospital right at the entrance of the residential complex. Once Jiyu Yenjin recognized Xielin, his voice was measured and unhurried, with a slight, unconscious lift at the end. "Brother Xielin, is your stomachache any better?" I instinctively looked at Xielin, only to feel the flesh of my cheek being pinched again. Xielin glanced at Jiyu Yenjin but didn't respond, only offering a slight, knowing smile. Then he turned his gaze to me and called out, "Zhu Wn." I instinctively brushed Jiyu Yenjin's hand away, straightening up. He looked at me. "Long time no see." Feeling a bit perplexed, I glanced up at Jiyu Yenjin and forced out a couple of awkward laughs. "Yeah, long time no see." He looked back and forth between me and Jiyu Yenjin. I jumped in to introduce him first. "This is my boyfriend, Jiyu Yenjin. You just met." He let out a scoff, then murmured a low amham. Then he added, "Actually, I'm not the Xie family's son. I already knew, for a while." Every platform was pushing stories about the Xie family's mistaken identity scandal. The hospital mixed up the DNA samples. It sounds unbelievable, but that's exactly what happened. What happened next was predictable. Once I knew I wasn't the Xie family heir and that Wenji wouldn't stay with me, I took the initiative and broke up with her. Later, I tried desperately to forget Wenji by throwing myself into one relationship after another. It didn't work, so I just stopped dating altogether. "So what? What does any of this have to do with me?" I replied calmly. "I know, 8. He was left speechless. Is he seriously expecting me to be his sugar mommy again? I looked at him and blurted out without thinking, "Are you broke?" Jiyu Yenjin looked down at me, puzzled, then glanced at Xielin. After a moment's thought, he said, "Brother Xielin, if you're in trouble, just say so. We're all friends here. We'll help however we can." Xielin ignored him and instead called out to me again, "Zhu Wn." Jiyu Yenjin leaned in close to my ear, his voice loud enough for the security guard at the door to hear. "Does your friend have a phobia of handsome men? Is that why he's ignoring me?" I watched as Xielin pushed his face away. "How should I know?" Jiyu Yenjin drawled. "What's that supposed to mean? You're kicking me out for some other guy?" "No." I was busy placating Jiyu Yenjin, leaving Xielin hanging on the side. As I kept trying to soothe him, Jiyu Yenjin was about to go in for a kiss. He cupped my face and looked toward Xielin. Brother Xielin, mind giving us some privacy? He didn't answer me, but called out again, Zhu Wn, can we talk? Before I could even respond, Jiyu Yenjin's lips came down on mine, silencing me. I didn't notice when Xielin left. Jiyu Yenjin rapped his knuckles lightly against my head. What, can't you see what he's getting at? I said with righteous indignation. Of course I can see, he's broken, wants me to support him, I just didn't agree to it. Jiyu Yenjin was speechless. Isn't that the case? I was muttering to myself as I walked when Jiyu Yenjin suddenly stopped. He took a deep, steadying breath, then practically shouted, startling me. Stop thinking about it. I could tell he was angry, though I didn't understand why. Still, I cautiously moved closer, desperately trying to make conversation to get him to acknowledge me. I strained on my tiptoes, trying to reach him for a kiss. In the end, I gave up. I just held his hand, hanging my head like a child who's done wrong and is begging for forgiveness. He suddenly stopped again, taking deep breaths to steady himself. You haven't done anything wrong. You don't need to try to please me. Perhaps seeing my reddened eyes, he sighed, leaned down, and said gently, our relationship is equal. Love shouldn't be maintained by trying to please each other. I love you for who you are. It's okay if you make a mistake, understand? Tears welled up in my eyes again, uncontrollably. Then why were you so harsh with me just now, so loud and so angry? He straightened up, scratching his head in frustration, then bent down again and explained softly. I wasn't being mean, I was just a little annoyed earlier. I asked seriously, annoyed about what? He stammered, just annoyed, that you were talking to that guy. That night, I felt a strong sense of happiness, but at the same time, I received a text from Xielin that made my heart skip a beat. Did you know your boyfriend is messing around with another woman? Xielin is in the hospital. It seems to be a stomach issue, and the situation doesn't look good. His friends have been really down lately, and they keep urging me to go see him and spend more time with him. I found it all very strange, so I refused. I'm not a miracle doctor. He won't get better just from me looking at him. Besides, I have a boyfriend. What would it look like if I went running to him? Wanwan, please, just go and see Xielin. He's in a really bad way. 9, if it's serious, just call an ambulance. Even Fu Minute came to persuade me in the end, saying, Wanwan, maybe you should go see Xielin. He seems to be in a pretty bad way. It was only later that I found out he had stomach cancer. In the end, I chose to go see him with Jiyu Yenjin. His once defined face was sunken, and he lay in bed looking utterly haggard. He said he wanted to talk to me alone, and I looked up at Jiyu Yenjin. Jiyu Yenjin patted my head and quietly stepped out of the room. All this formality, if I didn't know better. I'd think he was about to read his will. After Jiyu Yenjin left, the first words out of his mouth were, Wanwan, I'm telling you, you should break up with him as soon as possible. He's no good. Ever since he sent me that text message last time, I've felt a bit of resistance towards him. I know my own people, and after spending nearly half a year with Jiyu Yenjin, how could I not know what kind of person he is? I snapped back at him. I can judge for myself whether someone is good or not. He looked at me with an air of confidence. Want to make a bet? Bet on what? Bet on your boyfriend's loyalty. I'm not betting on something so pointless. Besides, aren't you supposed to be dying? If I win, are you going to wish me riches from heaven? He was left speechless. Finally, he muttered, just you wait and see. All men are the same. I'm not sure if it was Xielin's words that put me on guard, but I started scrutinizing Jiyu Yenjin's every move. I followed him for a few days and found nothing. It suddenly struck me how childish and pointless this was. Maybe I never truly trusted Jiyu Yenjin deep down, which is why a few words of provocation from someone else were enough to make me test him. I gave up on the idea of tailing him and refocused my attention on myself. As we were heading out today, he suddenly asked me, not tagging along today, busy organizing the proposal. I answered without thinking, nope, go do your mischief. He gave a scoffing laugh and replied, oh, he's gone. He actually left. I put down the proposal I was working on, grabbed my bag, and followed him out. I secretly trailed him all the way to a restaurant. The mood lighting made it look like a spot for a romantic date. I was afraid Jiyu Yenjin would notice me, so I didn't dare get too close. Just as I expected, a girl ran over, threw herself into his arms, said something I couldn't make out, and then went upstairs. The girl had a fair, rosy complexion and looked very young. I clenched my fist. Cheating is bad enough, but with a minor, that's even more despicable. I punched the wall in frustration, then shook my hand wildly from the pain. I followed him upstairs, and to my shock, there was a woman up there. The woman was lying down, her curly hair styled in a fashionable and glamorous way, exuding a mature charm. Jiu Yenjin is truly disgusting, wanting to have his cake and eat it too, first seducing young girls, now married women. I raised my phone, intending to take a picture to confront him, but just as I opened the camera, Jiu Yenjin had vanished. I was suddenly hoisted up by the back of my collar, and a familiar voice chimed in. "What are you up to?" I flustered about, looking more like I'd been caught with my hand in the cookie jar. "Well, since you're already here, why not stay for dinner with my family?" I must be out of my mind to not see something so obvious. Who in their right mind would plan a secret rendezvous at a restaurant? It's not like we're sneaking rice. One's a young lady, the other's a married woman. I really should get my head checked one of these days. My face flushed bright red. Hello, in-laws. Hello, auntie. His mother was quite enthusiastic. Wanwan, dear, please, have a seat. You're so lovely. I've heard Arjun talk about you often. The little girl sitting to the side looked at me with her bright, crescent moon eyes and said, "Hello, sister-in-law. My name is Jiu Wanwan. My brother said your name is the same as mine. It's WN2. Yes, what a coincidence." I still can't bear to think back on how awkwardly and uncomfortably I got through that meal. This gamble, in the end, paid off, and right now, I am truly happy, a deeply contented kind of happiness. What about you? Have you found your happiness? Story 2. In order to exchange for Charlie's beloved, I became the kidnapper's new hostage. Charlie said that the sniper was in position and I wouldn't be in danger, but he didn't know that 5 minutes later, the kidnapper would detonate the bomb on his body and die with me. The kidnapper pressed a gun against my head and pushed Grace towards Charlie. I saw Charlie nervously check Grace all over. Then, his frown relaxed and he hugged her tightly. From beginning to end, Charlie didn't turn his head to look at me even once. "Host," the system's cold voice came. "It seems that the mission of winning Charlie's love has failed again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day." Now the story begins. This was the 3rd year of my marriage to Charlie, and also the 9th time I tried to win his heart. Unfortunately, he still didn't fall in love with me. 10 minutes ago, Charlie didn't hesitate to replace me and agree to the hostage exchange. "Jean, you're from the Harris family. They don't dare to hurt you." Although Charlie seemed a bit reluctant, he still winked at the bodyguard beside him. "The sniper is already in position. Grace is delicate. I don't want her to get involved in this bloody matter." The bodyguard put his hand on my shoulder and exerted some force subtly. I couldn't move and resignedly said okay in my mouth, but couldn't help cursing in my heart. Charlie didn't know that 5 minutes later, the kidnapper would detonate the bomb on his body and die with me. After experiencing it several times, before dying, I skillfully lowered my pain perception. I still remember the first time I tried to win Charlie's heart. Grace and I were trapped in a sea of fire. Charlie picked up the unconscious Grace in his arms. He glanced at me, who was injured beside him, and hurriedly left a sentence wait for me. Then he turned around and disappeared from my sight. At that time, I naively thought that Charlie would come back to save me, but until I was burned to death by the fire, I found out that Charlie was busy expressing his love to the awakened Grace. Perhaps the system saw that I was in too much pain before death, so later I gained the ability to adjust my pain perception. The system told me that I had one last chance left. I knew that if I failed again, not only could my wish not be fulfilled, but I would also be completely erased. "Jean, I don't like you. Have you lost all your dignity?" With a crash, Charlie forcefully slapped my hand off his arm. It was a familiar scene, familiar words, and a familiar hell-like start. I returned to the day when Charlie was forced to marry me. Charlie's voice was not low, and the surrounding guests immediately looked over. They whispered to each other, with obvious teasing in their eyes. I ignored those unfriendly gazes and the stinging pain on the back of my hand. I just silently followed behind Charlie, waiting for the first opportunity. When Charlie passed by the lobby, the crystal chandelier above his head would suddenly fall. In the previous times, I precisely pulled him aside, Then I took the opportunity to throw myself into his arms and shed a few tears of fear, seeing this. Charlie didn't have the heart to speak harshly to me anymore, but I never expected that Grace would be standing right under that lamp this time. Charlie didn't want Grace to see me, so he turned his head and threatened me viciously, "Jean, if you don't want to die, get out of here." But the next second, he followed my gaze and noticed the shaking lamp above Grace's head. "Grace, be careful," Charlie shouted in horror and pounced on Grace. "Charlie," I was anxious but grabbed nothing. I could only rush forward and push them both away with great force. Charlie couldn't have an accident. If he died, my mission would be directly judged as failed. In that instant, I didn't even have time to lower my pain perception. My internal organs seemed to be smashed. The intense pain made me faint instantly. That night, my wedding with Charlie was on the hot search. The Harris family's young lady bleeds at the wedding scene. Who is the mysterious woman in the arms of the young master of the Wilson family? The grand and solemn wedding eventually ended up as a joke. In a widely spread photo on the internet, Charlie was kneeling on the ground, holding Grace in his arms. His shocked gaze was fixed on a place not far away. There I was, lying in a pool of blood, with my life hanging in the balance. When I woke up, I didn't see Charlie. Grace had an asthma attack due to the shock that day and was sent to the hospital with me, and Charlie only took a quick look at me and then stayed by Grace's side all the time. My mother was indignant and asked me, hating that I couldn't be better, if I really had to be with Charlie. "Mom, if something happens to Charlie, I can't live either." I felt helpless in my heart and euphemistically told the truth. But Charlie, who was about to enter the door, heard it clearly. He looked at me with a complicated expression, as if a bit distressed and a bit dazed. He said thank you to me and then said, "Sorry, Jean, Grace's body isn't well yet, so she can't come to thank you in person." After my mother left, Charlie added this sentence casually, as if Grace was the one who was seriously injured. Just as I didn't want to see Grace's hypocritical appearance either, I nodded indifferently. The doctor said that my condition was unstable and I couldn't be left alone. Perhaps to repay me for saving his life, Charlie took the initiative to take on the task of accompanying me. But not long after, he received a call from Grace. Her coquettish voice came from the other end of the phone. "Charlie, are you with Jean? I suddenly want to eat the wontons from that store at the West Street intersection. I wonder if I'll go buy them now." Before Grace could finish speaking, Charlie said without hesitation. I clearly saw the smile on Charlie's lips. "This stupid love-struck fool." After hanging up the phone, Charlie seemed to remember the doctor's instructions and looked at me with a hesitant expression. I knew about that wonton store. There was always a long queue. I thoughtfully told Charlie not to worry about me. After only a moment of hesitation, he stood up. "Sorry, I'll come back as soon as possible." He nodded slightly to me and casually asked if I wanted to eat wontons. I gently shook my head and showed him a wronged and lonely side face. As expected, Charlie paused for a moment. When he turned to leave, a trace of shame flashed across his face. But I never expected things to be so coincidental. Right after Charlie left, I felt a sharp pain in my head. I tried to hold on to my dizziness and pressed the call button. The nurse urgently pushed me into the ICU, but couldn't get in touch with Charlie to sign the papers. The system told me that Charlie was queuing up to buy wontons and didn't hear the phone ring at all. What a disaster. I shouldn't have pretended to be generous to gain his favor just now. I regretted it so much that I rolled my eyes and completely lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I saw the slap mark on Charlie's face and couldn't help laughing out loud. "Jean." Charlie turned his face away a bit angrily. "Did you do it on purpose? I was only out for 10 minutes. And you managed to get yourself into the ICU." I shook my head, trying hard to hold back my schadenfreude, and said timidly, "I'm sorry," perhaps feeling guilty. Charlie was stunned for a moment and then closed his mouth awkwardly. That day, Charlie surprisingly accompanied me until Grace embarrassedly troubled him again. "Charlie, is Jean awake? My stomach feels a bit uncomfortable after eating the wontons. Could you please call a doctor for me?" Miss Lynn had given the order. And of course Charlie was more than willing. "Jean, stay put. I'll accompany you to go through the discharge procedures next week." Before leaving in a hurry, Charlie condescendingly told me. I nodded, but didn't take it to heart. Charlie had said many similar things, but without exception, He would break his promise because of Grace. After Charlie left, I found a bowl of wontons on the table. It had been too long. The wontons had absorbed all the soup and stuck together in a sticky mass. It looked unappetizing. I expressionlessly threw it into the trash can. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Grace happened to be moving. Charlie sent his assistant to pick me up. When I woke up from the sofa, Charlie's coat was draped over me. Charlie was working in the study. I decided to seize the opportunity to show my attentiveness and brought him a cup of hot milk. "Thank you." Charlie didn't raise his head and frowned, rubbing his chest. I immediately became alert. Charlie had congenital heart disease, and every time he felt uncomfortable, he would make this move. "Where's your medicine?" I asked nervously when I saw Charlie's lips turning purple. "I accidentally left it at Grace's place. She said there are a lot of things during the move, and she'll give it to me in a few days when she finds it." Charlie's nonchalant look made my blood rush to my head. "Charlie, is there something wrong with your heart or your brain? Doesn't Grace know how important this medicine is?" I couldn't help raising my voice in anger. "In a few days, you might be just a handful of ashes." Since I mentioned Grace, Charlie's face had turned ugly. He stood up with a sullen face and grabbed my arm. "Jean, get out." Charlie was very strong, and I felt a tearing pain on my back. "It hurts. My wound has split open." I cried out in pain, but Charlie ignored me and continued to drag me towards the door. "Charlie, let go." I couldn't break free no matter how hard I tried. In a hurry, I bit his arm. Charlie's steps suddenly stopped. He let go of my hand and bent down in pain. With a bang, I watched helplessly as Charlie fell in front of me. I rummaged around, but Charlie's spare medicine was also gone. I had never seen Charlie's illness attack so severely. I was at a loss for a moment. The system reminded me that Charlie could hold on for at most 20 minutes. The nearest city hospital was only a 5-minute drive from home. Thanks to the system, I managed to carry Charlie on my back. Another sharp pain came from the wound on my back, and I couldn't help groaning softly. Warm liquid soaked my clothes and Charlie's. I endured the pain and moved towards the parking lot with difficulty. "Jean." Charlie regained consciousness at some point and struggled weakly. "Put me down, you're bleeding." His movements made me lose my balance. I staggered a few steps and almost fell. When I cried out in pain, Charlie ignored me. Now when I'm trying to save him, he's causing trouble. "Don't move." I was angry and anxious, and slapped Charlie's butt hard. "You," whether it was from anger or shame, he fainted again right after he spoke. I stuffed Charlie into the car. The moment I touched the steering wheel, I suddenly shivered. Painful memories came flooding back. My hands and feet seemed to be bound, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I cried and begged the system to help me. The next second, the car started. "Help! Help!" As soon as we arrived at the hospital, I shouted and dragged Charlie out of the car. Charlie must not have an accident. I was extremely anxious, watching him being carried away on a stretcher. I then felt my legs go weak and couldn't hold on any longer. I knelt down and burst into tears. I was very familiar with this hospital. I had accompanied Charlie here many times. Every time, I would seemingly unintentionally pass by that ward. Through the glass on the door, I peeked at the person lying on the hospital bed. He was as quiet as if he were asleep, just like the way he used to lie beside me. But now, not only could I not stay by his side all the time, but I also had to pray to heaven again and again for the safety of another man. Charlie and I were admitted to the same ward. He even woke up half a day earlier than me. "Jean, this is the first time I've seen someone being sent to the ICU because of excessive grief." Charlie's words sounded a bit sarcastic, but there was a trace of confusion in his eyes. He casually asked if I was really that afraid of him dying. I stared at his eyes, which were similar to that person's, and nodded seriously. "Charlie, you know that if something happens to you, I can't live either." This was the second time I said this sentence. Charlie was stunned for a long time and then threw a crazy person at me. Then he lay down with his back to me and stopped talking. I saw a blush quietly climbing up his ears. The air became quiet, but the system's alarm kept ringing in my ears. Charlie's heartbeat frequency was continuously soaring. After an unknown amount of time, Charlie suddenly sat up. He frowned with a conflicted expression. After a long while, he said, looking like he had no way to deal with me, "Jean, I won't do this again." This was the first time Charlie made a promise to me. after I saved his life again, before being discharged from the hospital, Charlie told me that his cousin was also in this hospital. Jean, tomorrow is my cousin's birthday. I'll take you to see him, Charlie said, and then added unnaturally, after all, you're my nominal wife. My heart skipped a few beats, but not because of the latter sentence. Suppressing the excitement in my heart, I nodded and said okay. The next day, I bought a bunch of purple irises. Charlie took a look and raised his eyebrows, saying it was a coincidence. He said that his cousin had a lot of paintings of irises in his collection. Really, that's quite a coincidence, I said. I followed Charlie and stood by that person's bedside. I traced his eyebrows and eyes with my eyes again and again, forcibly suppressing the soreness in my nose. I blinked hard to keep the tears from falling. Kevin, wait a little longer. Wait until I win Charlie's heart, then you can wake up. On the way back, I was in a trance. Charlie called me several times, but I didn't react. Jean, have you lost your soul? Charlie honked the horn hard and complained, you were staring at my cousin in the hospital all the time, and now you're looking absent-minded again. What on earth is wrong with you? Charlie looked at me suspiciously, afraid that he would notice something. I lied that Kevin looked so much like him that I got a bit carried away, thinking of the incident when I was scared into the ICU by him. Charlie patiently comforted me a couple of times. In the previous attempts to win his heart, Charlie had never noticed my attention to Kevin, but now, he was obviously starting to care about my every move. Perhaps, the incident with the chandelier really had a butterfly effect. After being discharged from the hospital, Charlie was very busy, and my progress in winning his heart stalled, until one day 3 months later, Charlie offered to accompany me to temple. The weather was sunny that day, and surprisingly, Charlie wasn't called away by Grace. He walked with me up the 99 steps in front of the temple. On the way, thinking I was walking too slowly, he even took my hand on his own initiative. He was puzzled as to why I came to worship Buddha every month. I'm praying for the person I love, hoping he'll recover soon and live a worry-free life to 100 years old, I murmured softly, looking devoutly at the Buddha in front of me, without noticing Charlie's intense gaze fixed on me. On the way down the mountain, Charlie suddenly stopped me. Jean, he touched the tip of his nose, his tone awkward yet serious. My heart won't have any problems for a while, so, you don't have to come here specially every month. Charlie had misunderstood my prayers in front of the Buddha. I lowered my head and smiled mockingly, not bothering to explain. I just played along and said some nice words to please him. That night, we stayed in a homestay on the halfway up the mountain. The night view was beautiful, and Charlie said he would accompany me to watch the stars, but as soon as he finished speaking, he received a call from Grace. There was a power outage at Grace's place. She was afraid of the dark and wanted Charlie to accompany her. Charlie looked at me, conflicted, and hesitated for the first time. Don't go, okay. A sudden urge to test him came over me, so I grabbed his sleeve and pleaded pitifully. Charlie pursed his lips and remained silent, his expression changing several times. Bang! A loud noise suddenly came from the other end of the phone. Grace, what's wrong with you? Charlie snapped back to his senses immediately. He no longer looked at me, but anxiously asked about Grace over and over again. Charlie, I can't move my leg. Can you come quickly? Grace seemed to be injured and kept crying, urging Charlie, wait for me. I'll be there right away. Charlie frowned tightly and suddenly yanked his arm out of my grasp. I was caught off guard and fell to the ground, my head hitting the stone table beside me. Charlie heard the sound and turned his head. He seemed to want to come and help me, but was held back by Grace on the phone. After Charlie left, I received a message from him. He asked if I was seriously hurt from the fall, and said he would come to pick me up early in the morning. I threw the phone aside mockingly, ignoring the wound on my forehead. I sat in the courtyard and started counting the stars. Kevin once told me that every star in the sky was a wish of the world, but suddenly, it started to rain, and the sky turned gray. I couldn't find the star that belonged to me. System, will I fail this time too? The system didn't answer me, just let out a sigh of pity. In that instant, all negative emotions such as pain, grievance, sadness, and fatigue welled up in my heart. I couldn't hold back anymore and broke down crying. I cried so sadly that I couldn't tell whether the liquid on my face was rain or tears, until an umbrella shielded me from the wind and rain. Jean, a familiar voice sounded. I looked up suddenly. Unable to believe my eyes, I had never seen Charlie in such a mess. His hair was wet and stuck messily to his forehead. "Jean," Charlie gasped, asking me unhappily, "are you going to cry here all night?" Looking at the flush on Charlie's face, I was very worried. "Charlie, is your heart okay?" Hearing this, Charlie stared at me with a complicated expression, as if he wanted to say something but held back. It was so quiet in the air that only the sound of rain could be heard. But the system sounded the alarm again, just because of Charlie's heart rate that couldn't calm down for a long time. A sigh of resignation broke the silence. The corners of Charlie's mouth curled up, with a hint of helpless doting. "Jean." He suddenly bent down and approached me, his voice tender like never before. His breath sprayed on my face. "If you keep looking at me like this, I'm going to kiss you." Charlie softly asked me to close my eyes. He got closer and closer to me. I was startled and quickly turned my head to the side. His warm lips landed on the corner of my mouth. This was the 10th time I tried to win Charlie's heart, but also the first time he kissed me. Charlie explained to me that after the heavy rain, he felt rather restless, so, regardless of Grace's persuasion, he came back to the homestay in the rain to find me. Fortunately, I came back, otherwise, you'd still be out in the rain. Although his words sounded like a complaint, his eyes were full of concern. After hearing this, I just said a polite thank you and then fell silent again. Since I dodged Charlie's kiss, the atmosphere between us had become subtle. This was the first time Charlie left Grace for me. I should have been happy, but I was troubled by that kiss. I didn't know how long it would take to successfully win Charlie's heart, and I was even more anxious about what Charlie might do to me during this process. This time, the progress of winning his heart was much smoother than before, but I started to fall into a strange cycle. I wanted to win Charlie's heart as soon as possible, but I also resisted the possible intimate behaviors with him. Fortunately, Charlie had been on business trips frequently recently and had no time to take care of me. Although I was conflicted inside, I still had a few months of peaceful days, until one day, the scene from the previous life suddenly reappeared. 2 years earlier than before, Grace fell into the hands of the kidnappers again. Still the same familiar words. The condition for exchanging hostages was for me to replace Grace. I looked up and met Charlie's eyes, and my heart tightened instantly. He stepped forward and hugged me, his body trembling non-stop. "I'm sorry, Jean." His lips lingered by my ear, and I heard his reluctant murmur clearly. In an instant, deep despair engulfed me. Charlie's bodyguard held my shoulders tightly. Just like in the previous life, this was my last chance. I had to take a gamble. I knew that Charlie was more receptive to soft persuasion than coercion. I was just about to kneel down in front of him, disregarding my dignity. But what happened next took me by surprise. I saw Charlie turn around, raise his hands, and walk step by step towards the kidnapper. Charlie said that as the president of the Wilson Group, he was more valuable than a married daughter of the Harris family. The kidnapper was obviously tempted and started to urge Charlie with a gun. I was so shocked that my mind went blank, and only one voice kept reminding me that Charlie must not have an accident. I struggled frantically, trying to rush forward regardless of everything, but the bodyguard held me back tightly. "Charlie, come back, come back." I fell to the ground in despair, and my vision became blurred. I cried out loudly, wanting to tell him that the kidnapper had a bomb on him. But the system muted my voice. Grace was still crying and urging Charlie to save her, but Charlie stopped and turned his head towards me for the first time. He stared at me deeply and told me with lip language not to worry. I shook my head desperately, watching helplessly as the kidnapper pushed Grace away. The gun was pointed at Charlie's forehead. Bang! The next second, a shower of blood splattered. "Ah!" Grace screamed and fainted. Charlie's face was covered in blood. At his feet lay the killed kidnapper. The bodyguard let go of me, but my legs were too weak to move. I saw the bodyguard step forward and pick up Grace, while Charlie, bypassing them, rushed straight towards me without hesitation. "It's okay, Jean, it's okay." Charlie hugged me tightly, patting my back constantly to soothe me. My body couldn't stop shaking. I raised my hand and gently wiped the blood on his face. Then, with all my strength, I slapped him hard. "Charlie." I growled at him furiously. "In your heart, only Grace's life matters, right? Do you think other people are dead?" Charlie was stunned by my slap but knew he was in the wrong, and kept saying sorry. It was only a little bit away from my mission failing completely. I suddenly thought of my 9 previous tragic deaths, and the act of Charlie risking his life just now. All the old and new grudges welled up in my heart at once. In a fit of rage, I spat out a mouthful of blood onto his face. I saw Charlie's eyes widen in horror. Jean, Jean, he grabbed me tightly, shouting my name desperately, but I just felt my eyelids heavy and my mind wandering. Before losing consciousness, I seemed to hear the system saying congratulations. When I woke up, I was still a bit dazed. The system said that at the moment I passed out, I successfully won Charlie's heart, the last chance, in less than a year. It felt like I was in a dream. Host, congratulations. I could tell the system was also a bit relieved. Now, you can make your wish. The system said that on the day I spat out blood, Charlie carried me and ran outside like crazy. If the bodyguard hadn't calmed him down and sent me to the hospital in time, Charlie would probably have been sent to the ICU due to excessive heart load. Host, if there is no suitable heart source for the operation, Charlie can live for at most 2 more years. The system told me to think carefully before making a decision, whether to get a suitable heart source for Charlie or to wake Kevin up. System, why do you think I need to consider? I felt puzzled and even a bit amused. I endured all the grievances to win Charlie's heart just to wake Kevin up. From beginning to end, Kevin has been my firm and only choice. Jean, here you are. Charlie handed me an apple that was unevenly peeled. It was obvious that as a pampered young master, Charlie had no experience in taking care of others. I waved my hand in disgust, indicating again that I didn't want him to accompany me. Charlie slumped his shoulders, and his expression immediately turned gloomy. Jean, I'm sorry, I really won't make you worry again in the future. I had told Charlie that if something happened to him, I couldn't live either. At that time, Charlie promised me there wouldn't be a next time. But now, he broke his promise because of the hostage incident. I withdrew my hand and replied indifferently, as you like. Anyway, my mission was completed, and no matter how much he tormented himself, it had nothing to do with me. I was telling the truth. But Charlie thought I was still angry with him. Charlie tried hard to find topics to talk to me. But I always looked listless, until he suddenly mentioned Kevin, the person I had been thinking about day and night. Jean, my cousin woke up a few days ago. The doctor said it was a miracle. Grace actually has always liked my cousin. She was so excited that she cried for a long time this time. I thought Charlie was probably trying to distance himself from Grace in front of me, but I sneered and rolled my eyes. I remembered that I used to be jealous of Grace and sarcastically told Kevin that he was really lucky that both his junior sisters had fallen in love with him. Marjorie, it's different. I still remembered Kevin's serious look at that time. He said that I was the love of his life, the one he was destined to meet. It just happened that I came to his side as his junior sister. When our eyes met, we only saw each other. My name is Marjorie, and my lover is Kevin. We had been in love for many years until a car accident separated us between life and death. But now, I'm Jean, also the legal wife of Kevin's cousin. The night I was discharged from the hospital, I went to the restaurant where I had an appointment with Charlie. He said he had prepared a surprise for me, and I happened to have something to tell him. But I didn't expect that Charlie would break his promise again because of Grace. He kept explaining to me on the phone that Grace was rejected by Kevin, feeling sad, and got drunk in the bar, threatening to commit suicide. Jean, I'll come to you right away after I send Grace home. Charlie apologized while begging me to wait for him, concerned about the thing I hadn't said yet. I had to be patient and wait. At 10 p.m., one after another fireworks suddenly bloomed in the sky. The waiter told me that Charlie had prepared this specially for me. I looked speechlessly at the empty chair opposite me, thinking the waiter was quite humorous. I wanted to go home and sleep. Yawning, I called Charlie. A familiar female voice answered the phone. Jean, it's me, Grace. Her voice was no sign of drunkenness at all. Charlie is taking a shower. If you're in a hurry, I can take the phone into him. Grace seemed considerate, but there was an air of intimacy with Charlie between the lines. No need, I couldn't help but find it funny. If you want to take a bath with Charlie, you don't need to find an excuse. Grace, frustrated by Kevin, wanted to humiliate me to make herself feel better. But she didn't know that even if she had an affair with Charlie right now, I wouldn't care at all. On the way back, my phone suddenly received a news push, followed by a surge of messages. Mysterious woman appears again, passionately kissing the young master of the Wilson family on the street. The explosive title on the trending search instantly piqued my curiosity. At this moment, Charlie's call came in. "Jean, don't believe what's said on the internet. Grace was drunk just now and suddenly kissed me." I pushed her away immediately. He was angry and anxious, as if he had suffered a great grievance. I clicked on the photos under the trending search. I had to admit that the angle of the sneak shot was perfect. In the photo, Grace was on tiptoe, eyes closed, kissing Charlie's lips. Although Charlie's expression couldn't be seen clearly in the shadow, it wouldn't make people think he was reluctant at the moment. Maybe this photo could come in handy in the future. I glanced at the divorce agreement waiting for Charlie to sign beside me and pressed the save button before the PR department deleted the post. Charlie and I returned home one after another, without saying a word. Charlie plopped down on his knees in front of me, who was sitting on the sofa. Was an apology really necessary to be so grand? I was startled. Then I saw him blushing, lifting one leg, and solemnly taking out a pair of rings. Charlie said affectionately that this was what he owed me on our wedding day. Listening to his rapid breathing, I couldn't help but worry if he would faint again when we talked about divorce. I awkwardly avoided the rings and handed him the divorce agreement. "Jean, did you take the wrong one?" Charlie's face darkened as soon as he glanced at it, but the next second, he saw my signature on the agreement. Charlie looked at a loss, clearly flustered. "Jean, believe me, there's really nothing between me and Grace." His eyes instantly turned red with anxiety. "She vomited all over me last night. I asked my assistant to bring me clothes. After I washed up, I wanted to find you, so I was delayed. Grace once saved me. She was going to commit suicide. And I really couldn't ignore it. I was wrong. I won't leave you for her anymore. I promise you." Jean, the incident that Grace saved Charlie when he had a heart attack caused quite a stir in our school. After Charlie woke up, he fell in love with Grace at first sight. Since then, he has become her most prominent suitor. Thinking about it carefully, my 9 tragic deaths somehow became part of their play. I was annoyed and interrupted impatiently. "Charlie, you don't need to promise me anything. Just sign the agreement quickly." I had never spoken to Charlie in such a tone before. He was stunned on the spot, his mouth tightly pursed with disappointment and grievance. I turned my head away and stopped looking at him. After a while, I felt a weight on my knee. I saw Charlie half kneeling, hugging my waist, and gently resting his head on my lap. "Jean, I love you." Charlie's voice was muffled. I tried to stand up, but his hands held me tightly. "I should have told you this long ago. I was wrong. I won't let you be wronged again in the future, so don't talk about divorce, okay, please, Jean." Charlie kept making careful and humble promises, like a dog being abandoned, clumsily trying to please its master. The moment the mission was successful, I knew Charlie loved me. But I never expected that the first time he said he loved me was right after I mentioned divorce. Didn't this guy know that belated affection was cheaper than grass? I frowned in disgust. Besides, for me, it wasn't about whether Charlie's love was late or not. "Charlie, I must get a divorce," I said firmly, leaving no room for negotiation. "Because I don't love you." In an instant, Charlie raised his red-rimmed eyes and stared at me intently. I thought Charlie would angrily question me, but the next second, he actually grinned and giggled. His head even rubbed affectionately against my arms. Was he mentally deranged from the shock? I was completely confused by Charlie. Then I heard him say with certainty, "Jean, so you were just saying angry words." He seemed rather relieved. "Among so many reasons for divorce, you said you don't love me. You've been to the ICU several times to save me. You said yourself that if something happened to me, you couldn't live either. When I went to find Grace, you were so sad that you cried alone in the rain. Even when I became a hostage, you were crying and trying to rush forward to replace me. Jean, these are all the things you've done for me. How could you not love me?" With each word Charlie said, his expression became sadder. As he spoke, the smile on his face disappeared, and his voice started to tremble. A tear suddenly dropped onto the back of my hand. "Jean, I'm sorry," came a voice with a sobbing tone. This wasn't the first time Charlie had said sorry to me, but for the first time, I felt his overwhelming guilt and remorse. Charlie's tears wet the divorce agreement. I remained silent. After his emotions stabilized, I said that I was going to move out, and he could come to me when he was willing to divorce. But Charlie stubbornly shook his head, saying that he would never divorce. Jean, this time it's my turn to chase you. I'll wait until the day you forgive me. Charlie's serious look was no different from Kevin's. I was stunned for a moment. Charlie firmly believed that me saying I didn't love him was just angry words after being deeply hurt. I was at a loss for words. At that moment, I even wanted to tell him everything. But then I thought of Kevin and their relationship, and could only swallow my impulse bitterly. I knew that with my current identity, I was no longer qualified to be with Kevin. Now I just wanted to get divorced from Charlie as soon as possible, and then spend the rest of my life alone, wandering around. Charlie took the initiative to contact the TV station for a live interview. He apologized to me for the news on our wedding day and clarified the photos that were secretly taken a few days ago. I did have feelings for Grace, but now I only love my wife, Jean. I've done a lot of wrong things in the past, which broke Jean's heart. Now I just want to spend the rest of my life making up for it. Charlie, regardless of the surprised host beside him, seriously punished himself in public. Jean, I'm sorry, I love you, when the camera zoomed in. The blatant love in Charlie's eyes almost overflowed the screen. The trending search stayed high for several days, and the comments below were polarized. Some people called Charlie a scumbag, while others praised him as a real man. Some said that a prodigal son returning is more precious than gold, and some said that belated affection is cheaper than grass. My phone was almost exploding with messages, and even my mom was moved by Charlie's shameless act and persuaded me several times. Jean, Mom made some soup for you. When Charlie brings it to you tonight, have a good talk with him. Listening to the busy tone on the phone, I felt a headache. I just wanted to get a low-key divorce. But now Charlie had made it known to everyone. My infatuated image had taken root in people's hearts, and I could no longer use no feelings as a reason for divorce. Many netizens even left me messages, saying that I had finally seen better days and that I should forgive Charlie after torturing him. Everyone seemed to favor the plot of I ignored you when you loved me, and I regret and pursue you when I leave. But the most annoying one was Charlie, the culprit. Besides going to my parents' place to curry favor every day, he repeatedly asked me when I was going to torture him. Jean, now so many people are watching me. Can you give me a chance to start over? Charlie pleaded pitifully with his magnetic voice. I was so angry that I laughed instead. After sending "This is moral kidnapping," I blocked his contact information. When I saw Charlie at my doorstep, I remembered what Mom said about sending soup. The night wind was cold, and Charlie was only wearing a thin shirt. His pale face showed fatigue, but when he saw me, his eyes lit up instantly. Jean. Charlie raised the thermos bucket and smiled obsequiously at me. Mom made soup for you, but I couldn't reach you, so I had to wait at your doorstep. I took the thermos bucket, thanked him, and then euphemistically asked him to leave, but Charlie shamelessly insisted on watching me finish the soup before leaving. The soup was a bit cold. I took a sip and found that it wasn't made by my mom. It was really hard to drink. I looked up, met Charlie's furtive glances, and saw the band-aid on his hand. I immediately understood and poured the soup into the sink in front of him. Hey, Jean, you. Charlie was too late to stop me and stood behind me, looking like he wanted to say something but held back. Charlie, did Grace ever tell you that the soup you make is hard to drink? As soon as I said this, I saw Charlie's face turn red instantly. No, Jean, it's not. I've never made soup for Grace. It's my first time, and I didn't have any experience. I definitely won't make mistakes next time. Charlie forced a smile and gently held my hand. Next time, it would probably be even worse. I felt tired and didn't want to beat around the bush with him anymore. My tone became heavier. Charlie, I poured out the soup not just because it was hard to drink, but more because it was made by you. I don't need your kindness. Please don't bother me before you agree to the divorce. I thought Charlie would fly into a rage or at least leave with a cold face. But he just remained silent. After a moment, he asked self-consciously, Jean, can I accompany you to temple tomorrow? Looking at Charlie's eager eyes, I remembered that tomorrow was the day to go to temple to pray for Kevin, but Kevin had already woken up, and I didn't need to go there frequently anymore. Thinking of this, I shook my head at Charlie. Charlie, I don't need you to accompany me." Looking at Charlie's drooping mouth, I thought for a while and added, "I won't go there anymore in the future." As soon as I finished speaking, the disappointment on Charlie's face instantly turned into despair. That night, Charlie said good night to me with red eyes, forcing a smile. Before leaving, he didn't bother me for a while until one day, he said in a serious tone that he wanted to meet me. I agreed, but Charlie broke his promise again. "Jean," Charlie said in a hurry on the phone, "I'm at my cousin's place, he had an accident. And I can't come to see you." My heart skipped a few beats. "Kevin, what happened to him?" My mind went blank instantly. I turned around and ran towards Kevin's house desperately. From a distance, I saw a figure sitting on the edge of the rooftop. The figure was thin, as if it would be blown off by the wind the next second. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I could only run faster, even faster. "Kevin, Marjorie is dead, but I'm still with you. If you really jump off, I won't live either." As soon as I reached the rooftop entrance, I heard Grace's crying, "Miss Lynn, I don't know what my parents did to make you misunderstand." The voice that I had been longing for sounded, "Whether you live or die, what does it have to do with me?" Kevin, who was always gentle, asked coldly at the moment. Grace turned around in embarrassment and left. She bumped into me hard, but I didn't have time to care. "Kevin," I shouted. The two people left on the rooftop turned their heads at the same time. Kevin's eyes were full of confusion. He didn't know me. "Jean, why are you here?" Charlie also looked at me, who was in tears, with a blank face. "Charlie, don't ask, I'm begging you. Go down and wait for us," I pleaded. Charlie's face changed several times, and finally he left in silence. The wide rooftop was left with only Kevin and me. "Mr. Kevin, could you come down first, please?" I approached Kevin cautiously, step by step. Kevin shook his head and gave a polite but distant smile. "I'm sorry. I startled you at our first meeting." Kevin said he was very happy because he would be able to see his beloved soon. I watched as his body leaned outward a bit more. "No, Kevin, Marjorie didn't die." In a moment of desperation, I blurted out. Kevin stopped and turned his head, looking at me blankly. "Kevin, Marjorie didn't die. She just can't recognize you." The grievance in my heart finally burst out completely. I cried and shouted, "She became someone else. She even became someone else's wife. She can never come back to you. Kevin, she can't come back." My heart was torn with pain, and I fell to my knees, until I fell into a warm embrace. "Marjorie, is that you?" Kevin asked me over and over again with a trembling voice. I was crying too hard to speak, and could only nod desperately. Hugging him tightly in return, I heard Kevin softly ask if I hadn't recognized him all this time because of Charlie. I frowned, not knowing how to explain it to him, but Kevin seemed to misunderstand. He even comforted me. "Marjorie, if you only want to be Jean, I will definitely keep this secret. Marjorie, I just want you to be happy." Kevin's smile was uglier than his cry, making me feel both angry and heartbreaking at the same time. "You fool. Are you just going to be so generous and give me to someone else?" I muttered unhappily, then raised my head and kissed Kevin's lips. I was so focused that I didn't hear the approaching footsteps. "Jean, what are you two doing?" Charlie's angry roar came. He widened his eyes, looking at Kevin and me in disbelief. "Jean, is this the reason why you insisted on getting a divorce? My brother just woke up, and you've already hooked up with him." After coming down from the rooftop, Charlie kept sneering at me. Looking at his increasingly pale face, I couldn't help asking if he had brought his medicine. "When you were kissing my brother just now, why didn't you worry about whether my heart could take it?" Charlie couldn't help raising his voice, asking me sarcastically. Under Charlie's resentful gaze, after much hesitation, I told him everything, from my rebirth, to the system, and then to winning his love to save Kevin. I only didn't mention the 9 times I died tragically when the attempts to win his love failed, since I had already succeeded. Talking about those would seem like deliberately seeking pity. At first, Charlie frowned tightly, but later his face became expressionless. "So, you really don't love me, right?" Seeing me nod, Charlie suddenly kicked over the coffee table in front of me, his expression turning angry and distorted. "Jean, you played with me. How dare you play with me?" Charlie gritted his teeth, as if he was about to rush up and tear me apart, but the next second, a stream of tears flowed from his eyes. I had never seen Charlie look so desperate. He was crying silently. so vulnerable that he seemed like he would break at the slightest touch. I opened my mouth, but didn't know how to comfort him. "Jean," Charlie's hoarse voice came, "you're the most hateful woman I've ever seen." Charlie tightly pinched my chin. I was forced to look up and meet his eyes. Hatred, unwillingness, pain, sadness. Charlie's expression changed again and again. Finally, he laughed bitterly as if accepting his fate. "I should hate you, Jean," he murmured, dejectedly resting his head on my shoulder. "But why can't I bring myself to do it?" That day, Charlie and I parted on bad terms. "Jean, don't even think about getting a divorce from me." Charlie's tone was more serious than ever. He said that since I had deceived him, he wouldn't let me have my way. After Charlie left, Kevin asked me worriedly if I was willing to talk to him. I shook my head in silence. Kevin was thoughtful. If he knew the truth, he would probably blame himself even more. "Marjorie, no matter what happens, I'll always be with you." Kevin didn't ask any more questions. Just gently kissed my forehead. I told Kevin that I would resolve the matter between Charlie and me as soon as possible, but when no lawyer in the city was willing to take on my divorce case, I couldn't help calling Charlie to ask what he was up to. "Jean, you cuckolded me, and you still expect me to make way for your love." Charlie had nothing nice to say. I suppressed my annoyance and explained, "Charlie, if it wasn't for the accident last time, I would never have revealed my identity to Kevin in this lifetime. I want a divorce just because I don't love you." Charlie angrily told me to shut up. "Jean, it was you who came to provoke me first. Divorce. Don't even think about it." Charlie's stubbornness completely irritated me, and I retorted harshly, "Charlie, our marriage is in name only. I can go to the hospital for a hymen test. If you don't divorce me, I'll find male models every day to cuckold you." Charlie hung up the phone without saying a word. When I regained my senses, I thought my words were a bit too much. A deliberate cough came from behind. I turned around and saw Kevin standing at the door. "Marjorie, I didn't mean to overhear what you said." Kevin seemed to have a conflicted expression, but there was a smile in his eyes. "I just thought it over and still wanted to give it a try. Before you find a male model, could you consider me first?" I knew Kevin was just trying to make me happy, but I still blushed instantly. Not long after Kevin left, my phone rang. "Jean, what was my brother doing at your place for so long?" Charlie's voice was drunk, and he started asking me resentfully as soon as he opened his mouth. I didn't want to talk to a drunk person and was about to hang up when he suddenly softened his tone and pleaded weakly, "Jean, talk to me." "Okay, I was wrong. I shouldn't have made you angry this afternoon. Jean, I miss you so much. How can you be so cruel to me? Tell me what's so good about my cousin. I'll change to be like that. Jean, my heart hurts so much. If you don't come back, I'll throw away my medicine." Charlie kept talking to himself, and I was suddenly at my wit's end. Remembering what the system had said, I couldn't help getting annoyed. "Charlie, your heart can't take your nonsense. Can you stop being so capricious?" The voice on the other side stopped abruptly. After a moment of silence, Charlie suddenly asked me if I had ever prayed for him during the many times I went to temple. Even just once. His voice was tinged with sobs. I suddenly remembered that when Kevin woke up and went to temple to fulfill his vow, I had already stepped out of the Buddha hall, but then turned around and knelt down in front of the Buddha again, asking him to bless Charlie with happiness and good health. I thought that Charlie was a crucial help in Kevin waking up, but the truth was too cruel. If I told him, Charlie might really be so angry that he would vomit blood, seeing that I didn't say anything for a long time. Charlie laughed self-mockingly. "Jean, you really have no heart," he murmured and hung up the phone. I sighed and called Charlie's secretary. That night, Charlie was sent to the hospital again. The doctor said that if he continued to mess around like this, his heart could last at most 1 more year. Charlie said calmly on the phone that he wanted to see me. We finally made an appointment for 3 days later, the day he was discharged from the hospital, but the night before the meeting, I had an accident. When I woke up again, I found myself lying in an abandoned warehouse in the suburbs. Grace was standing in front of me with a hideous face. "Jean," her sharp voice cut through the silent night, making me shudder. "You bitch, having Charlie isn't enough for you. You actually want to seduce Kevin too. Charlie actually came to warn me because of you. What kind of magic potion did you pour into him?" As she spoke, she slapped me twice hard. The taste of blood immediately filled my mouth. I was weak all over and could only remain silent, knowing that I couldn't provoke her rashly at this moment. But Grace had gone crazy. She laughed and said she was going to set fire to the place and create the illusion that I committed suicide. "You're crazy." I spat the blood-mixed saliva onto her face viciously, but she just laughed even louder. The warehouse was big. Grace only lit a corner on the first floor. She didn't want me to die too quickly. She said she wanted me to watch death approaching and suffer the pain. My phone was not far away, but I didn't have the strength to reach it. The system had left after my mission was successful. Without its protection, I could do nothing but wait for death. The feeling of being burned to death really wasn't good. It was a pity that I couldn't adjust the pain perception anymore. I thought despairingly, until I heard someone calling my name, accompanied by the urgent footsteps. Before I could see clearly who was in front of me, I was tightly hugged into someone's arms. "Charlie, why is it you?" I stared blankly at Charlie in front of me. He was still wearing a hospital gown, and there was a patch of blood on the back of his hand. "What? Are you disappointed that it's not my brother?" Charlie gasped, saying sourly. Before I could answer, he picked me up and ran towards the exit. Charlie was focused on avoiding the thick smoke and forgot to pay attention to the wooden boxes piled up beside him. Bang! With a loud noise, I seemed to hear the sound of bones breaking. At the moment the wooden boxes collapsed, I was tightly protected in Charlie's arms. Charlie's leg was pinned down by the wooden boxes. I wanted to help him, but I was powerless. "Jean." Charlie's face was deathly pale, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. He tightened his arms around me. "Don't waste your energy." There was no signal in the warehouse, and the phone was useless. Despair enveloped us again. "Jean, if there was no cousin, would you have fallen in love with me?" In the silent stillness, Charlie's voice suddenly rang out. He looked down at me, stubbornly waiting for an answer. I felt a pang of pity, but still shook my head. "Charlie, the first time you left me for Grace, I was destined not to love you. The love I want is mutual respect and also an eternal and exclusive preference." Charlie's eyes instantly turned red. He raised the corners of his mouth, and his smile was uglier than his cry. "Jean, even when we're about to die, you're not willing to lie to me." I softly said sorry. But Charlie closed his eyes and stopped looking at me. In the thickening smoke, I didn't know how much time had passed. I seemed to hear someone calling my name. Charlie suddenly lifted my head and rubbed my lips with his fingertips repeatedly. His eyes were affectionate, as if filled with endless nostalgia and reluctance. "Jean, I installed a tracker on your phone. On the way here, I hesitated for a long time, but finally sent a message to my cousin. Now, I'm extremely glad I made this decision. Even if you're cruel to me, I can't bear to let you die with me." A sigh came to my ears. The next second, my lips were pressed against something warm and wet. Charlie kissed me fiercely. I was so anxious that I bit his lip, but the kiss didn't stop until Kevin arrived. The fire was getting bigger and bigger. The wooden boxes were too heavy, and Kevin couldn't move them at all. "Cousin, save Jean first," Charlie said as he handed me, who was in his arms, to Kevin. Kevin's eyes swept over my swollen lips, and the hand holding me tightened instantly. I buried my head in his chest in embarrassment. "Charlie, I'll come back to save you right away." The moment Kevin turned around, I heard Charlie's voice. "Jean, did it hurt when you were being burned to death?" I suddenly raised my head, unable to believe my ears. At the moment our eyes met, the sadness in Charlie's eyes almost overflowed. He hung his head dejectedly and murmured, "So those dreams were real, cousin?" Charlie smiled at Kevin, looking relieved. "You know, the reason you woke up is because I finally fell in love with Jean. But actually, this was the 10th time she tried to make me fall in love with her. She failed 9 times, and each time she died a tragic death because I didn't love her. She endured the grievances I brought her and the pain of death, all just to fulfill the wish of waking you up. Cousin, Jean loves you very much. You must cherish her." I didn't expect Charlie to have all the previous memories, nor did I expect him to tell Kevin everything. He looked so serious, as if he was saying his last words. Kevin's hands holding me were trembling non-stop, and his tears dripped onto my face. After experiencing it several times, before dying, I skillfully lowered my pain perception. Kevin put me down and was about to rush into the fire, but the moment he turned around, the warehouse suddenly collapsed. I stepped forward and hugged him tightly. Kevin was crying, shouting Charlie like crazy, looking at the raging tongues of fire in front of me. I thought of Charlie's eyes looking at me affectionately. He pointed at his lips with a smile and said to me that he had received the reward for saving me. If he died, I didn't need to feel guilty anymore. At this moment, I couldn't hold back the grief in my heart and burst into tears. This was the first time Charlie watched me leave, but it also became the last time I saw him in this life. Charlie died in that fire. Grace deliberately set the fire, and because of the serious nature of the crime, she was punished by law, but I knew the Wilson family wouldn't let her go easily. After coming out of the fire, I got seriously ill and was in a daze all the time. When I finally recovered, I left without telling anyone and boarded a plane going on a long journey. Charlie died because of me. I thought that in this life, there was no possibility for Kevin and me anymore. After staying in a fishing village by the sea for a year, I dreamed of Charlie for the first time. He said Kevin was almost going crazy looking for me. He didn't expect that after his death, he would still have to help Kevin. He babbled a lot, but when I woke up, I only remembered him smiling and saying goodbye to me at the end. I was awakened by a knock on the door. Marjorie. The moment I opened the door, I fell into a familiar and reassuring embrace. The end.